and namaskar everyone. I am Manju Chaturvedi, a DST STI Policy Fellow from IIC Bangalore and member of the STIP 2020 Secretariat. A very warm welcome to the ninth and the last session of the In Conversation series, also called the ICW series, which is an exclusive interaction series with eminent scientists, industry leaders, and thought leaders of the country as a part of the STIP 2020 formulation process. With today's session, we also come to an end of the Track 1 process of the STIP 2020, which was the extended public and expert consultation process. On August 28th, the session was launched with our guest, Honorable Minister Dr. Harshvardhan, and the session was moderated by Secretary DST Professor Ashutosh Sharma. To mark a special ending to the very important series, we have an eminent guest with us today, Dr. Manju Sharma, a former Secretary Deputy and pioneer in the biotechnology sector in India. We are extremely privileged to have you with us today, ma'am. And to steer the conversation, we have with us today Dr. Dhananjay Chaturvedi, who is a campus fellow at NCBS, a developmental biologist by training, and is presently working in the lab of PSA Professor Vijay Raghavan. The event has been live streamed on Science Policy Forum's YouTube channel. We look forward to an active participation from our audience. You can share your thoughts, concerns, and ask questions on social media platforms using the hashtag #ChatWithManjuSharma. I repeat, kindly use the hashtag #ChatWithManjuSharma on the social media platforms to ask questions for today's session. This will be taken for address by our eminent speaker during the second half of the session. I'm sure, like me, all our audiences are extremely excited for the session. And without further ado, I hand over the stage to Dhananjay to take forward the session. Dhananjay, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mahua. The audience must know that we are privileged to have with us today Padma Bhushan Dr. Manju Sharma. She's a distinguished scientist and internationally recognized for her monumental contributions in the promotion of science and technology. She specialized in plant anatomy and plant chemistry. She led the Department of Biotechnology of the Government of India as secretary from 1995 to 2004. She has been the advisor, chief science and scientific secretary in the office of the scientific advisor to the Prime Minister. She's pursued her BSc, MSc, and PhD from Lucknow University and a postdoc from Purdue University in the US and the Institute of Plant Anatomy and Cytology, Copenhagen, Denmark. So we could go on and list the various societies that she's a member of, and that might take up a large part of the session. I think we're going to suffice it to say that it's an honor to speak to you, and we'd like to carry this conversation forward so that our audience sort of gets to know the journey of biotechnology in India and where it's headed. So thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Sharma.
Meet and talk to you as I see a team of youngsters. And that is what the India is for tomorrow. All of you, the young people are here and they are going to talk to me, and I'll be very delighted to answer any questions. And of course, any senior person, if he's there, very well and good. But otherwise, the younger team is very, very good and welcome. Let me start this conversation with since most of you are from Bangalore and you know that 7th of November, we are going to have the birthday of our most distinguished scientist of this country, Sir C.V. Raman. And I think the best message which can go to the young people and the politicians and the policy makers, administrators, is what Sir C.V. Raman said. It was in a convocation address in Madras when he spoke, and he said, I quote, "If you ask me what is the greatest industry of a nation, the key industry, I have no hesitation in saying that it is the production and diffusion of knowledge. There is no nobler work for a man or an institution than to bring up a young generation in health and strength and in the vigor of intellectual and physical activity." Unquote. And I think we will all agree that one of the most important agenda which should be before the STIP policy is that how do we bring up skilled human resource in the country in various fields of science and technology, and how do we encourage them to join science, and how do we give them more recognition, more rewards, more awards, more fellowships, etc. So the policy has to really address itself towards the needs and requirements of the younger generation. And that is the best way to move forward and take India forward in the area of science and technology. We all know that science and technology is the major vehicle of transformation for socio-economic development of the country, as well as for socio-economic progress of the society, the transformation of the society. That for that, science and technology is most important. As all of you said, that I have dealt with the sector of life sciences for many years now in the government. I want to tell you also something, that 1905 was the year referred to as Annus Mirabilis. And this is what's called a miracle year, when Einstein was at the top of helm of the affairs, and there were several accomplishments. He presented several papers, etc. And the whole area of physical sciences, chemistry, engineering was progressing very fast. And thus, this was considered as the century of physics. The 20th century belonged to physics. But when we came to the 21st century, which is referred to as from 2007, which is referred to as Annus Mirabilis, another one, and this time it is the area of biology. And therefore, we call this 21st century as the area of biology. With, the whole area of science and technology is one side, but biotechnology is really a combination of many areas in the physical sciences area, and of course life sciences, botany, zoology, microbiology, everything coming together. So now it has merged into the field of biotechnology. So if you think you want me to say something more in the initial remarks, I can also say one thing which I had also conveyed to Professor Akhilesh Gupta. You know, this country has had a sort of a provision for all these years to have a science policy. The first science and technology policy, 1958, was, and actually that policy itself, it was so comprehensive, but one-page document, just one page. And from 1958 till we came to 80s, when we had technology policy statement, etc., that policy was good enough for the whole country. For doing anything, it was quoted. And I want to tell you something about that policy had said the major importance: foster, promote, and sustain cultivation of science and scientific research in all aspects. So this was, I think, in one sentence, the need of the nation, the importance of science to integrate it with the socio-economic development was very clearly brought out. Then we had in 1983 a technology policy statement, Technology policy statement was a very important statement, and for the first time it was clearly brought out that science alone will not help the progress of the country. We need technology, we need technological developments, and therefore a technology policy implementation committee was also formed as a result of the technology policy statement. Not only that, DST had many other structures like the National Science and Technology Entrepreneurship Development Board, then the Technology Development Fund, the TDF, and so on. So basically, the seed was sown for the development of technology and more emphasis on technology in 1983. Then we went on to form a policy in 2003. There was a science and technology policy which laid emphasis on the R&D and integration of science with the socio-economic sectors. 2003, and then we came to 2013, which is the latest. What we have today, before the STIP will come, the policy which we have is Science and Technology Policy 2013, a very comprehensive document. I must say, many of us had worked for that, and it's accepted. It is in DST, and we feel all the time we were feeling that if we get it implemented properly, all the aspects which have been covered in the Science and Technology Policy Statement, I think the things would really completely transform our scientific ecosystem, I would say. However, we have been implementing many aspects of that policy, and when we come to STIP, maybe you want to discuss this later on, and that what some of the things which we will like to include. So I will stop here just with this one more statement about the human resource development. You know, one thing which is most critical whenever we are talking of all the new, I would say, new messages of the Prime Minister, what he has been saying, Swachh Bharat, Swasth Bharat, Atmanirbhar Bharat, Make in India, skill improvement, etc. All these areas, if you see, there is a clear importance of science and technology. And not only that, when we come to the present day, when we are in such a serious pandemic of COVID-19, again, we are looking at science and technology, biotechnology more importantly. So we have to take this message with us that science and technology interventions at every forum, every area of the country which is required for the society, for the national development, is very, very critical. And we have to enthuse the younger generations. We have to diffuse knowledge in more and more bigger societies. And we have to make this a knowledge-driven society. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for those opening remarks. Actually, the last part of your statement segues very well into my next question, which is that the National Biotechnology Development Strategy 2015 to 2020 is in place. How do you think the Science and Technology Innovation Policy 2020 can complement it and contribute to the growth of the sector and help achieve the larger goal of a self-reliant India?
One important thing we have to start with when we talk of biotechnologies and its growth in the country, that biotechnology is probably the most important intellectual enterprise of the humankind. Biotechnology is an area which encompasses many fields, for example, computer science and physical science and chemistry, engineering, entrepreneurship development, everything together. So it's really a combination of so many technologies which come together and then they become biotechnology. The other very important thing which I want to mention here is that biotechnology is the only area of science which is closest to the requirement of human being. Whether you think of food, you think of agriculture, think of employment, you think of animal sciences and their well-being, you think of healthcare, environment, energy, all these areas are related to biotechnology. So one area which has to be very strongly built in the STIP is the all-round development of biotechnology field in the country. That's one important point. And connected with that is the human resource development. Biotechnology is a skill-intensive field. It cannot be developed without, for example, if you have got a diagnostic kit which you have developed, you can't just go give it to an ordinary person to test it. You need a trained professional. That's just one example. So in every area of application of biotechnology, we need trained manpower. So human resource development in all aspects of biotechnology and plus the overall growth of biotechnology is very important.
Thank you. And that, again, very nicely segues into the next question, which is that you've been in the field of policy making for scientific research in India for a while. And since you spoke of testing kits and such, they are the very useful societal contribution that scientists make, right? But there's a dichotomy somehow today in our field of fundamental research and applied research. And how do policymakers balance the two, and how do you strike a good balance between them?
See, there is no compromise with the basic research. The fundamentals have to be clearly understood. So at no point of time, any of the policies which we have had so far and the policymakers would ever compromise with the need for a very strong base of basic research in the country. That's number one. Secondly, if we want to come to the next stage of application, then we have to really connect with the socio-economic sectors. You cannot find the application of science and technology without connecting it to the requirements of the people, the need of the people, and the socio-economic sector. For example, let's say transport or tourism. All these areas, if we go into the details, you will see how important it is to integrate them with the science and technology interventions. So to come back to that main point, that how we can have the application, I think most important issue here is how do we connect, network with scientific institutions, research institutions, universities to the economic sectors. That's one. Secondly, when you come to translational research, and this was the point when we had not thought of it in the initial phase, at least about biotechnology, I know, but I think even about space, that has almost become a translational research. Whatever they have done, they did in the fundamentals, they have come and translated it into a reality, into actual incidences, in actual launch vehicle, etc. Similarly, biotechnology, we have set up the Translational Research Institute in the country, Translational Research Institute for Science and Technology in Delhi, and that institute is meant for that. If you have studied the fundamentals for developing a diagnostic kit, let us say for COVID-19, how do we translate that into a product? And there you think of the need for joining of an industry, and there, these things connect each other, the public-private partnership. That becomes very important, the PPP. and then it connects with the engineering sector of the thing. So the entire ecosystem has to be developed to have an enterprise where from basic research you go to the final product. And that is if I can quote, in fact, Professor M.G.K. Menon, who was really one of the main architects of the Indian scientific infrastructure. He had said that if you really want to get the best out of science and technology, you must complete the innovation chain from basic research to technology to the product development to the market. That's the complete innovation chain. And today we are giving emphasis to the innovation. And as you know, decade, it was declared 2010 to 2020 a decade for innovations. And we have a National Innovation Council, etc. So many structures.
Right, and in fact, as someone in Bangalore, BIRAC has been playing a major role in encouraging young entrepreneurs. So I think it speaks to that connect between society and the scientific establishment, where entrepreneurs come in and make the link and sort of generate, provide services and the economic growth. So the biotechnology industry, though, is classified for having high investment, high risk, and long gestation periods. As such, the support required is in an early phase and needs to last through various stages of product development. In a resource-constrained setting, how best can local industries be supported financially and in terms of handholding? I mean, what would be your opinion on that?
Everybody is aware of BIRAC, the Biotechnology Industry Research Council, that was set up only for this purpose. Before that, when the Department of Biotechnology was just started in 1986, it was focusing on the development of infrastructure and R&D. Later on, when the question came that we have to go for the industry, we have to go for the development of products and new processes and technologies, then the idea was born in the department that we will have a task force on industrial biotechnology. And from that, the idea went on to establish BIRAC, then SIBRI under BIRAC, and so many new schemes came up under the BIRAC. Today, BIRAC has supported almost 150 product development. These are the products which are almost available, and industry is trying to upscale them to go for the large scale production, and also think of the market importance and how to go and have a delivery system. So BIRAC was set up precisely for this. But before BIRAC, there was a very important structure established in the. And I want to again share with you one important point. The Department of Biotechnology, when it was set up, the first time in the country, there was a scientific advisory committee overseas, which had experts from abroad who used to meet once a year and advise the department as to how to progress fast, because the field of biotechnology was progressing very fast in West. We had one Dr. Anand Chakravarti, late Dr. Anand Chakravarti, who was a very great microbiologist, and all of you know about Anand Chakravarti. And it was with him, his efforts, and with all of us, we developed the Biotechnology Consortium India Limited. And that was supposed to be the interface between scientific institutions, research institutions, and industry. So that's how biotechnology field was moving towards networking with the industrial system.
Thank you for bringing those up. When we speak of international collaborations, industry and biotechnology, one thing that comes to mind is an outcome of biotechnology that affects many of our lives. It's just through food. Genetically modified crops have benefits for farmers, but sort of are made to benefit industry somewhat. And yet, that's what brings in the amount of food to feed such a large population. There's a lot of controversy surrounding these crops. Would you have any comments on that?
Well, I would not like to comment on this. See, one fact we have to remember, that genetic engineering is meant for improvement of the crops, crop productivity, the abiotic-biotic stress, and nutritional qualifications. So the importance of genetically modified crops and genetic modification cannot be compromised. We have to understand that. There was a BT cotton which was launched in the country when I was secretary on 26 June. And that for 2-3 years, everybody saw how much gain the farmer had, how many times his income was increased, etc. But beyond that, I don't want to have any comments. It is really the prerogative of the government, its policy to decide what it wants to do. But world over, in many advanced countries, the GM crops have spread like anything. And I don't want to give you all the examples, but you have seen the United States of America. And we have to always think of the need of the human being rather than only think that what is the problem. Even if supposing there is some problem in GM crop, let us say there will be an effect on environment, okay, or some toxicity. All that studies can be done. Science is what we study. And I want to just tell you one message from Norman Borlaug, who is the founder of our agriculture biotechnology, and also in India, he helped us with the Green Revolution. I'm sure all of us remember it was Green Revolution which made us food independent and food sufficiency. And this year, you will believe that we have got 291 million, between 291 to 295 million tons of food grains, enough for the Indian population. So what did Borlaug say? This is the answer to your GM. World peace will not be built on empty stomachs and human misery. Deny farmers access to modern technology and the world will be doomed. Not from environmental degradation, as some of us would believe, but from starvation and social and political chaos. So I think I have answered your question. And as far as the regulatory mechanism is concerned, I again want to say many people may not believe with me. Certainly, there is always a scope for improvement in science or guidelines. But today's regulatory system is very robust, what we have got. And DBT has developed guidelines for recombinant DNA policy, for the agriculture policy separately. It is now working on the ICMR has got guidelines for stem cell research, and DBT is working for genetic editing also. So work is going on simultaneously. We cannot say that the new genetic technology, which is so important for improving the food production, quality of food, etc., we cannot ignore. Is that okay?
No, absolutely. In fact, you bring us to a very important point, concerning the landscape of technology, which is constantly shifting. So how does our government stay vigilant and responsive through policy making? I mean, what mechanisms have been useful to encourage certain applications of a technology like gene editing versus curtailing other applications, gene editing for other purposes? And in your experience, how receptive have government agencies been in seeking input from practicing scientists and vice versa? And how proactive do you think scientists have been in these processes?
I think it's a very sensitive question. And what I want to only emphasize here, that as far as the DBT is concerned, we have tried to look at all aspects of biotechnology, which includes the biosafety. That's a very important aspect. And for that, DBT from the very beginning had developed guidelines, had gone through the entire regulatory procedure. And to some extent, there is a fairly robust system which is there, and it will not stop the high quality biotechnology research. We can go through that. But to release the GM crop in the market or to go for GM food, that is the government policy. And the scientists have tried to give their best advice to the government through several forums, not one. I mean, I think if we start discussing GM technology and how many forums and how many policy statements have been made, including some of the best statements which have come from Professor Padmanabhan in Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. So there is no dearth of that. But it's just a question that these things take a little time in the government. And it doesn't matter. Scientists have a lot of patience. They are doing research. DBT has funded so many programs on the genetic editing, and they are preparing the guidelines. They are all in the R&D phase. So let us start with the R&D phase and wait for the government policy.
Actually, thank you very much. And I think the conversation so far has been excellent. I would actually like to include our audience in this conversation. And Mahua, would you like to take over? It's over to you.
Thank you, Dhananjay. And thank you, Dr. Sharma. It was an extremely enriching session. We almost felt like we were listening to stories of the biotech sector of India, and the anecdotal references that you added made it even more live. Seems like our audiences are also enjoying the session as much, and the questions and queries are pouring in for you, Dr. Sharma. So we will start taking them up. Maybe I'll begin with one such question which has come up on YouTube, which is about as you were being you were an institution builder, and people look up to you for kind of recommendations and suggestions on what kind of new institutions that you think will be required to set up in the new future, which can be included as a part of STIP 2020 that you think. Over to you, Dr. Sharma.
New institutions, first of all, I personally feel that in the area of biotechnology, we have almost 15, 16 new institutions which have come up, and they cater to the needs of different sectors like immunology, DNA fingerprinting, cell biology, and of course, not only DBT, the other agencies like NCBS itself and Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, and many universities, JNU and MS University, Baroda, and all, they have all got excellent expertise and infrastructure. What is required now is to have some institutional framework which will translate many of these R&D things into actual product processes and technologies. We have one such institute, but for such a big country, just one institute won't work. So something like an integrated interdisciplinary structure will be more important. I can't hear you.
Thank you, ma'am. That was really insightful. Dhananjay, over to you for the next question.
So we have another question here, actually along the lines that you were talking about. So you've been an institution builder, and you were instrumental in setting up NII, NIPER, biomass research centers, and more. What kinds of new institutions need to be set up in the next few years? I'm going to make a plug for marine biology because that's a very unexplored sector in our system. So, what do you think should be looked at?
Dhananjay, I think that since India is rich in bioresources, it's one of the mega biodiversity spots. We need to set up some institutions which will clearly go for biotransformation of the bioresources, because we have to think for future, for the safety of the human being and for the environmental safety. Looking at the climate change aspects, we have to move towards bioeconomy. And that can only come if we set up a few designated institutions in different regions of the country, because the climatic conditions are different. Northeast is different, south is different, east and west, all the desert climate, then Western Ghat, we have a different climate. So we need to set up specifically designated institutions, small one, not big one. We don't need to set up very big institutions, which will deal with just bioresource, its utilization, biotransformation, and converting these resources into useful products and technologies. That's one area. Certainly, we need to set up more institutions in climate change area, and we much more scientific inputs, for example, in terms of modeling of studies, in terms of climate change vis-a-vis, let us say, various diseases. Now, we have to study, for example, the correlation between COVID-19 and the climate, the transmission pattern, how the virus is moving in different climates. So climate change becomes a very important aspect of our research in the next century.
Right. So the mandate of many of our funding agencies, you say, should be towards climate change. But as a practicing scientist, Dr. Sharma, I have a question here. I think you'll agree that if one has to look for new technology, one has to look today in new organisms. So, for example, CRISPR, nobody went out to look for CRISPR. They found it in bacteria and found an application recently. And it's fantastic the depth it has been looked at. And it is a very useful technology today. But say, if you were to look in the seas, you've got, you've got plants that grow a foot a day. Now, so from the perspective of biomass, that's a fantastic source of energy, maybe. We've got marine animals whose biochemistry we don't even understand. Now, how does the government then say that you encourage scientists to take on these high-risk projects? Because there's no guarantee of success, but it's a very valuable attempt that can be mandated.
Dhananjay, one thing we should be very clear that scientists, science departments, scientific institutions, they are really free to decide on the advice of the scientific community which are the areas of research which they should take. In that, the government doesn't interfere. Okay, the government doesn't say that you take up this area, you take biomass conversion, or you go for cell biology studies, or you go for stem cell research. It is your advisory committee. In the DBT, we have, for the first time in the country, that there was a department which had more than 20 task forces in different subject areas: animal science, industrial biotechnology, environmental, marine biotechnology, dealing with aquaculture, agriculture, health research. These are all the areas covered in the task. And they have expert groups. And they decided. In fact, I want to also share one thing. You said that I have developed so many new institutions when I was the secretary. One of the reasons how I could develop is with the advice of the scientific community. I had these task forces, and from there the idea will generate that let us have this research. For example, we have 6 centers of plant molecular biology, but it was thought that why not we have one institute like National Institute of Plant Genome Research, where things can be concentrated, they can be coordinated, networking can be done like that. So the ideas for setting up of the institute, ideas for doing research, they all come up from the scientific community itself. They are generated from there. So no, I don't think there is government comes in the picture only when we have to apply the scientific results for the human application. That is where the government comes, because you need policies, you need regulatory mechanisms, you have to have safety of human being. So there, but otherwise it's all scientific community which decides.
Right. So, okay. So the space is there from the side of the government for scientists to explore these questions. Thank you for that. Mahua, would you like to pose the next question?
Yeah, thank you, Dhananjay. And thank you, ma'am, for taking up this and making this very clear about the interaction of government, the scientific community, the research community, and everything. And as you have mentioned about the COVID situation, from there, I would like to pose this question, which has also been raised by our audiences, which is regarding that it's been in the COVID situation, it has been more realized that there is an increasing need to revamp the healthcare system, just not in the country, but globally maybe, but in our country especially. And in that, biotechnology plays a huge role in modern healthcare, be it diagnostics or medicine. So, how do you think we can integrate biotechnology research with healthcare system more efficiently in India? Because at present, if you see, both the things are there, but they work more in a disjointed manner. So, how can we like more integrate both the systems together? Over to you, ma'am.
More biotechnology research and health research have always been integrated. This question should not arise, because when the Department of Biotechnology was set up, even prior to that, when there was a National Biotechnology Board, the priority area was biomedical research. And there it was ICMR. In fact, the DG ICMR always chaired the task force of DBT for biomedical research and healthcare. And there was always an effort to include someone from the health ministry also, so that one would know the actual requirements of the health in the country. So there has been integration. I won't say it is perfect. Nothing is perfect, at any stage of development. We are always moving far forward. But today, if you see, ICMR in itself is an extremely robust structure. And during this pandemic, the excellent efforts made by the ICMR in a very short period, I think everybody has really recognized that. The number of tests which have increased, the number of laboratories from 5 to today, so many, I don't know the number, I don't remember exactly, but it moves into hundreds like that. So many testing laboratories, training of the people, it can't be done suddenly, but it has been done. We have stood to the problem in full-fledged support of the humankind, and full-fledged support of the government has been provided by the scientific structures. Today, DST, DBT, CSIR, the defense system, IITs, everybody is working on something or the other related to COVID. DBT supported, BIRAC supported, in fact, development of a diagnostic kit. And that kit is now under validation by ICMR. So that's a combination. If DBT and ICMR won't come together, how will the kit go to the market? So healthcare area, from the very beginning, there has been an integration with the healthcare people and the biotechnology research.
Thank you, ma'am, and completely agree with you. And the COVID situation, the developments that we have seen, that was really like moment of pride and encouraging for even for researchers like us. Dhananjay, would you like to take over for the next question?
Sure. And since we are talking about, researchers like us, this is a question that comes to us saying that, and this actually leads into what you were saying earlier about capacity building. So undoubtedly, India has a fantastic talent pool to work with. They form the earlier career researchers form the major workforce in science, but there've been continued challenges with funding, assessment through publications, and career progression. We receive a lot of support in terms of the number of fellowships that are out there. For example, the National Postdoc Fellowship has been extremely helpful. The DBT Wellcome Trust Early Career Fellowships are helpful. Do you think there is scope to expand such support? And would there be any stumbling blocks in that?
Simple answer is yes. You have to always, because science is moving very fast and there are changes, there are new things which we have to do. So we have to always keep on strengthening our infrastructure and giving more funds for basic research, for application-oriented research, and also for attracting the industry towards science. So human resource development has to be in all these areas. So my answer is yes. Huh?
Thank you. In fact, this, I think we can, sort of lean on your experience and ask the question: how do you think the Indian talent pool has changed over the years? Do you, I mean, in your experience, have you seen drastic shifts, and what would they be?
Well, it's a very difficult question because we do change. We have changed from the time when we got independence till today, and new structures have come up with science. New areas are coming up with science. So the change is always there in scientific development. But to say to what extent it is satisfactory vis-a-vis the large population India has is a very difficult question. And I'm sure the moment we think of this, we think of the malnutrition. Why did Prime Minister start with this Poshan Ma? Only because everybody, the policymakers, the administrators at the highest level have realized that in spite of having such a large food production, why are the Indian women and children still malnourished? Okay, we have no answer. We are all trying our best, but we still don't have answer. Why is it like that? The children are dying, they are wasted, their minds have not developed properly. There are so many problems. And the women, in pregnancy, the lactating women, dying with anemia, very serious diseases. All this is because of the malnutrition. The completely balanced nutrient food is not reaching them. So we have to create an awareness amongst the population. You are right in saying that what is the change? Today's change is we have to create an awareness, a scientific temper, a word which was used at the time of independence is very relevant today. Scientific temper to be created in the country, including, let us take the case of COVID-19. Every day there are so many advertisements coming. Prime Minister in his address to the nation once again repeated three important factors: mask, social distancing, hand hygiene. Repeatedly. Now this message has to go in the whole country, in different strata of the society. And that is what now the efforts are being made by different societies, different academic institutions. So I think it's a developing phase. We haven't still reached the perfection. and we have to go. We can never be complacent.
Right. Thank you so much. Mahua, would you like to take the next question?
Sure, Dhananjay, thank you. Thank you, ma'am, for raising the issue of scientific temper, the importance of scientific temper. And I think DBT, in its role of increasing the scientific temper and awareness of biotechnology, has been has been extremely successful. And in one of your previous lectures, I heard you quoting that DBT's outreach and reach to the various regions of India has been extremely well. And myself being from northeastern India, I can say that like even from being from northeast India, we were completely aware of biotechnology, and many colleges had the biotechnology and BITS center, BITS center, and all of that. And I think that has been a huge achievement for Department of Biotechnology. So on this note, I'd like to know from you, one, the inclusivity attempt of Department of Biotechnology, and the other one about the Biotechnology Information System, the BTIS net. And because it's one of the pioneer system in the global scenario, I believe. So I'd like to hear from you about both this. Over to you, ma'am.
Oh, if you have heard some of my lectures, and you must have seen one of the slides which I have always I used to project. That is the complete map of India. And when I became the secretary, one point which I had put to all my task forces as a basic principle is to remove the regional imbalance. We should have biotechnology starting from north to south, east and west, every corner of it. And if you see India's map today, it is like that. Right from Kashmir, Jammu, there, and then coming to south, north, and then east and west. The entire country has biotechnology units, various units. Biotechnology Information Center, DICs and sub-DICs, Distributed Information Center and sub-DICs. There are 150 functional units in the country, 150. And they are networking with the major coordinating center in the DBT. Similarly, we have more than 100 departments of biotechnology in different universities of the country. We have research centers, centers of excellence. So effort was made in the DBT that we should have no regional imbalance, and we should try and distribute the infrastructure so that everybody can enjoy the fruits of biotechnology research. And bit site, I told you, is very well spread.
Truly, ma'am, truly. We have seen that happening, and like truly, ma'am, that's a huge achievement of Department of Biotechnology, truly. Dhananjay, over to you for the next questions.
So this is a very specific question. It says, asks, what is the present status and future plans of the Biotechnology Information System, BTIS net?
I'm not there now, so I don't have the inputs of the BTIS task force. But certainly one thing which I know and I have heard from the DBT is that they are trying to expand the system and include the biotechnology information network into other areas of research. For example, every institute of DBT like NII, NCCS, CDFT, and NIPGR, all of them have got a designated bioinformatics center, which connects to other institutions, academic institutions, universities, sometimes even the NGOs. So DBT has funded Biotechnology Information Center, not only in the DBT institutions, but in the universities, other academic institutions, IITs, NGOs, all over the country. So it's really but what exactly and also now I understand that they have a good plan. The DBT has a good plan, and they have taken up this work to connect it with the international information system, bioinformatics system. That also they are trying to do, and they have just started that process.
Right. So I'll just add a separate question to that, since you've been a practicing scientist. I mean, this is something that students, say, from my generation and later have faced. It is that when you think in terms of biotechnology and the application of basic biology concepts, um, is it necessary to think of courses in biotechnology versus joining a subset, a group of part of biology that you like, learning those concepts and building on them in the future? What would be your thoughts?
Courses in what? I couldn't get the question.
I'm sorry, I'll repeat that. The question is that students of my generation and after have had the option of taking biotechnology courses. In your opinion, are basic science courses good enough to lead up to biotechnological applications and careers, or is there something special, say, about biotechnology courses, in your opinion?
There are specialized biotechnology courses like we have in agriculture biotechnology, animal biotechnology, aquaculture, cell biology, including some courses in entrepreneurship development. And these are in IITs, for example, on the entrepreneurship development. You know that UDCT Bombay had a very big school of entrepreneurship development in biotechnology. Like that, we did set up these courses, and DBT later on also thought of having some finishing schools so that students who, let us say, if somebody has specialized in cell biology, how can we cut, if supposing he's interested in to start a startup or start a company, how to connect him with the industry. And that is the work which BCIL is doing. BCIL today has transferred 38 technologies, and it is in the process of bringing up a networking in the northeastern region and bring various academic institutions close to the industry. So structures like this were already there, but this is a very difficult thing to get the industry come forward and fund and join hands with the academic institution. It's a very difficult task. How much time we took in the case of IISc Bangalore to set up a separate society, because this need was felt there. So I think, Dhananjay, we can't say that we have got very good progress, but certainly BIRAC has done excellent work in this. BIRAC is training young students. Every Friday there is a program which answers the query of young innovators and students. So DBT is trying to touch upon many of these issues, but it takes time. It will take time.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Mahua?
Thank you, Dhananjay. I have like a tons of questions pouring in. Before we go to them, I would request your permission that if it's convenient to you, ma'am, can we extend the session by a few more minutes, because we are nearing the end, but questions like we have a lot.
Sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am. So, okay, this question, we have to ask you this, and audiences are also interested to know. So, you have been the leader, the pioneer, and the leadership positions that you were in the time and period in Indian science scenario, it wasn't that common. So, And underrepresentation of women in science, particularly at the leadership positions, is an issue and for the scientific community in India. And you are definitely seen as a role model in many aspects. So, in this context, please share your experiences so far and also suggest measures that could be used to address this issue and bring more women in practice of science and bring them to the leadership positions. Over to you, ma'am.
In 80s, when Dr. M.S. Swaminathan was the deputy chairman in Planning Commission for a short while, there was a chapter in the plan document called different aspects of socio-economic development of human resource. He called me and discussed, I was in the DST, that why not we have something very special for women? And let's have introduced in the 6th 5-year plan a chapter on women and development. I said, yes, it is a very good idea, sir. But if we have a chapter on women and development, there must be a special section on women in science and science for women. Both aspects. You get my point. Women in science and science for women. And he was readily very happy. He asked me to write down the draft. I wrote down the entire concept of what we should do. It was included in the plan document. And it was that time, first time in the country, we started a systematic effort to start science for women and also support, enthuse, nurture, mentor young researchers, senior women scientists, and all strata of women scientific community. And then we had a section in the Department of Science and Technology, which I was heading at that time, this Women in Science and Science for Women. It's very good work. I think the DST program has really been the nucleus for generating interest of the government of taking so many schemes like Kiran and many awards, rewards, all this system built in the scientific program of the DST. That has played a very significant role in this country. But then not only DST, as secretary, I was very keen that we do something for women in biotechnology. And I started a program on biotechnology for the benefit of women. And today, you know, the DBT has a program for biocare, for SPARSH, which is for the mother and child, you know, maternity health issues, all these nutrition issues, which I said. And the program has taken off very well. It gives more scholarships, more rewards, more transparent appointment and recruitment system, more transparent. Please note this word, because we have to involve women in a way that they can assume a leadership position in science. Why is it that they come up to a certain level and they don't become leaders? One of the meetings of the agriculture universities, which was chaired by the then DG, Dr. R.S. Paroda, and I was asked there to give a lecture on biotechnology in agriculture. And then I raised this question. All the agriculture universities were there. So I asked Dr. Paroda, till today, not a single woman has become the vice chancellor of any one of the agriculture universities. It's not that the women were not doing very good work in agriculture science, but up to a level they go and then stop. And I mean, that question mark is even today there. You know, women scientists, I have noticed, have to work 2 to 3 times more to reach and get the same position, same recognition as their counterparts. Now, this issue of gender parity, bringing more women in the scientific community, all this has been raised by so many committees. And in fact, to come back to STIP, I would like a special section on enthusing, mentoring, nurturing young women scientists in the country. That's very, very important. For there is nothing more important than mentoring of a young woman if she wants to do science. And we have to do hand holding many, many times because women, and also access to information. That is the most important thing. Many of the women, scientists, when I go to these remote areas in the colleges, they are not aware. I have gone through the entire, place, like very remote areas in the colleges, schools. They are not aware of the different schemes which we have started to give recognition to the women. And they don't know about various academies that they have to be nominated for the fellowship of the academy. So we have to, each one of us who is a woman scientist, I don't know who you are, we have to make this effort that we should carry the message of science, mentor a large number of women scientists, young girls, and see that they can go through that. The second most important aspect is technological empowerment of women. 60% of India survives on agriculture economy. You agree with me? But when it comes to training in agriculture practices like new technology package, bioinstrumentation, agriculture implements, etc., the women are not called. When the training school for farmers, you will always see the male farmers, whereas all the work, 60% of the work is done by women, starting with sowing, going up to the cutting the harvest. But why are they not included in the training? So we have been, but ICR also has now taken up this task in a big way, and they have an entire project directorate for women scientists in agriculture. And similarly, in the biomedical research field, DBT certainly has. So there is a very consistent effort of various scientific agencies to have structures which will help the women scientists, designated funding, scholarships, nominations, etc.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your very valuable inputs, which could go directly in the policy. And also your inputs about awareness and responsibility that we, the women scientists, who are a little more privileged maybe, have in science communication and raising awareness. I think that is a very strong message that we get from you today. With that, I'll hand it over to you, Dhananjay, to take maybe the last question for the session. Over to you, Dhananjay.
Right, thank you. I think that this conversation could go on for a very long time and still be just as thrilling. But in the interest of time, we have to ask the last question. And that would be that biotechnology is sometimes referred to as the business of the future. And so what would your message to young researchers, entrepreneurs, teachers, and students, and everyone who's working or planning to work in this field, what would your message be to them?
In 1996, when there was a UNIDO conference, and a lot of discussion was going on the definition of biotechnology. It started from the US definition, a recombinant technology, coming up to different areas. Then the scientists and the industrialists decided that we should call it making money with biology. That was the message which came out from UNESCO. So it is very clear that biotechnology is a sunrise industry. It has so much potential for the youngsters to join startups, to start startups, and there is provision. There is a BIRAC, there is a SIBRI, small scale industries, and even the skill development ministry and the Ministry of Startups, which has been set up by the government. They are all very keen to support the younger people, younger scientists, particularly the IIT people, to come and take up the grants and go ahead. Government is even giving funding for that. And I'm sure all of you know Dr. Kiran Majumdar Shah. She is a wonderful example of that. She started from a garage and as a scientist. And today what Bicon is, it's all her effort and vision. So the women can I'm now talking of women, but also the younger scientists. They can take from the basic research up to the final development and setting up of an industry. It's a full chain they can do. It just requires a little effort. It may be a little difficult in the beginning. So my message is never give up. Never give up. Try and see that if you have a mission, if you have a goal, you have to fulfill it, no matter how many difficulties come in the way. And there is no goal or no aim which can be fulfilled, or no wish or desire which can be fulfilled unless there are you meet so many obstacles in the way. And for that, you have to have a dedicated, hard effort. That's the only one. Whenever I tell my younger people, and when I am addressing a group of young students, what should they do? I said, don't think of this way or that way. The only thing which will take you to success is hard work. That's the only thing. And complete dedication to your goal. What do you want to become? What do you want to do ultimately in the country? And that is what is required, and what we should know. Nobody should try, the younger people especially, they must have a goal. They must decide what they want to do. It is not necessary that they have to only become scientists. But if they want to become scientists, do they want to become a basic researcher? Nothing wrong. If they want to become a medical professional, nothing wrong. If they want to go for agriculture area, very good. So much scope. Environment, climate change, energy, all these areas, bioinstrumentation. I know, I'm sure you know the example of SIB, the Stanford India Biodesign Center in India Institute of Medical Sciences. It has produced more than 7-8 products which have already gone to the market. And young entrepreneurs now have come up. IIT people have joined hands. So we have to bring together people. Dhananjay, if you want to go for translation of basic research, your ideas into actual benefits for the humankind, you can only do it. You can only do it when you do networking. You come together and hold hands. That is the most important.
Thank you so much. That was inspiring. With that, I think we must draw to a close, but not before Mahua presents the vote of thanks. Thanks, Mahua.
Thanks, Dhananjay. And this has been such an interesting, thrilling, and engaging session that very reluctantly I have to announce the curtain drawing time of the session. And in this session, at times we kind of forgot that we were live, and it was felt like that it's a discussion over a cup of coffee, which could go on and on. However, as we reach towards the end, on behalf of the entire STIP 2020 Secretariat, I would like to extend our gratitude to Dr. Sharma for being with us today and literally enlightening us on so many relevant issues. For us, it was almost a virtual tour of the evolution of Indian biotech sector. Also, our thanks to Dhananjay in helping us to drive the session and make it so engaging. With this, we also reach towards the end of the ICW series and track 1 public engagement session. So I take this opportunity to thank all the contributors, speakers, and moderators of all the 9 sessions, and our entire ICW team and officials at STIP 2020 Secretariat, DST office, and office of the BSA, and our partner organization, Science Policy Forum, and of course, our live audiences, without whom the entire engagement and the excitement that we have had wouldn't have been possible. Thanks for being with us for over the months that we had conducted the entire series. And a special thanks at the end to our team leader, Dr. Akhilesh Gupta, without whom this wouldn't have been possible at all. And also thanks to DST Secretary and the PSA for extending their help to organize this entire sessions and the entire process. So with the end, I'd like to thank all of you for putting together exercise and giving a platform to country's youth and an opportunity to interact with eminent scientists and industry leaders in the country. So with this, we come to the end of this today's session and also to the track one process. So with that, namaskar, and we close today's session. Thank you, ma'am, for being with us. Ma'am, could you please be with us for a few more minutes?
Okay.